How's everybody doing tonight? I think I'm live, but I don't know. My chose the wrong camera apparently. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Oh well. I think everybody is fine not seeing me, so I'll have to figure that out for some point in the future. But yeah, no, it just kind of went default this way, so you really don't have to see me. That's not true at all. But okay, well, yeah. So we're gonna pick up tonight with part 4. We left off with all of our shows with S and after. Yeah, there. I don't think I can make it any better than that. Unfortunately, it's there's just too much stuff on it. Oh, I should probably go into the presentation mode thing. Where is that? I always lose the buttons on this. Oh, there it is. Okay. Why does the Okay, is that better? Now we can pretty much see everything. At least I think so. I don't know, my screen is frozen, so I don't know. I'll have to depend on what you all see, but yeah. So we've made quite a bit of progress, but now tonight we get to the S's and later. So that brings us down to however many are on here. I think there's 18 per row, so that's still a decent chunk. Actually, I think it was one of the cats, 10. I think the cats are messing with me, but anyway. Yeah, I was trying to think if I had anything else to say before we jumped in, but not really. I'm working on the next Squad Showdown video, so I'm going to try to have that up this weekend. And I have decided I'm also going to release an expanded written story to go along with each one so that I can cover the Squad Showdown battles from character perspectives as well. So I'll say where those can be found once I do one, and we'll go from there. But more to the task at hand, let's go ahead and jump into the S's, starting with Sailor Moon. And, well, this is another one where we have to just consider the US version, right? And we all know that Sailor Moon got quite the chop from the localizers. So the US version of Sailor Moon, still pretty great, still pulled a lot of people into anime. but nothing like the original Japanese version as far as quality of content, I don't think. I might even put this one in good. What do you guys think? Good? Great? I think if we're comparing it against the Japanese version, then it's just got to go in good, I think. So, yeah, we'll put it in good. Next one. Never seen it before. Salty's Lighthouse. I didn't even know it was a thing. Never heard of it before doing the animated 90s listings. So, can't really say much about that one. I'll defer to all of you who may have caught it when it was on. The next one, though, is based on one of my favorite Lucasfilm games, or LucasArts games. And the animated series was a really well done adaptation of it. Yep, we went ahead and covered Sailor Moon and kept moving on, so you're good, 10. But we were talking about Sam and Max, freelance police. Secret of Monkey Island was good, but there's not a Secret of Monkey Island game here in the animated or cartoon here in the animated 90s. I did. You remember when you used to buy software from Radio Shack? Anybody? I remember I got the LucasArts. There were 2 different LucasArts 5-packs, and I picked up both of them when they came out. One of them, they were both. One was Star Wars themed. The other one had like Full Throttle and Grim Fandango and Day of the Tentacle. Good packs. A lot of fun on my Tandy 1000 SL. I think I upgraded from the Tandy at that point, but anyway. Next one, Santo Bugito. It's too small. I can't read it. And I don't know because I never watched it. Not something I've seen even to this day. I only know what I know about it from the animated 90s. So don't really have much of an opinion there. I do have an opinion on the Savage Dragon because I was a huge Image Comics fan in the 90s. And Dragon was one of the original Image titles. So not nearly as good as the comics. I loved the Savage Dragon comic book, but still a pretty great cartoon. Thought it was pretty well done animation-wise in that mass-produced 90s animation. But I'm just happy we got a representation of it in cartoon form, no matter how good it was. Next up, we have Science Court, another one I don't think I ever saw. I think that one was on Discovery or one of those similar channels, and nope, not something that was ever on my radar. Neither was this, The Secret Lives of Spy Dogs, Secret Files of Spy Dogs. So we're on a roll for things that I haven't seen. I did catch a couple of these Shakespeare ones, the animated ones, and I mean, they were good enough, I guess, but they were that really weird 90s cheap animation that was done by some of those third-rate animation companies, just cranked out release after release. So there wasn't a huge cartoon watching population on Ship 10. They weren't beaming in satellite TV for for animated series for the crew. All right. So next up, we have Shelley Duvall's bedtime stories, and the only one of these I've ever seen is The Shining. So I thought that one was pretty good, but I haven't seen the rest of the bedtime stories. Yeah, I was an underachiever for the first half of the 90s, and then I was an underachiever in the military for the second half of the 90s. So. All right, I got to zoom in on this because I don't know what this next one's called. I can't remember. The Snookums and Meat, something or other. This is another one that I never watched, so I don't really know much about it. If anybody else has watched the Snookums and Meat, or I don't even know if that's what it's called. I couldn't read it. But if anybody else has watched it, yeah, I'll defer to your opinions. Oh. No matter how weird it was, Dorlaxon, I doubt it was as weird as Siegfried and Roy, Masters of Illusions, which was a 4-episode miniseries about Siegfried and Roy being real magicians in a D&D type fantasy setting. It's a good one to check out. I watched it after hearing about it when I was doing the animated 80s or animated 90s list. Never saw it as a kid, but yeah, weird concept. If you want to see Siegfried and Roy running around in Renaissance fair dress-up garb and doing magic, then this is the place for it. All right, so next we have another of those early 90s Marvel shows. This one, I would say, is probably the second best, right behind Hulk and ahead of both Iron Man and Fantastic Four. So I'm tempted for great or for awesome, but I don't think it was quite that good. I'm going to put it in great, but it's a higher great than Fantastic Four and Iron Man. We'll just put it that way. Actually, Fantastic Four I put in good, so yeah, it did have the best comic styling of all of those shows. The art kind of looked like it was right out of the comics, so I did enjoy that. So here's another weird fantasy show from the era, Skeleton Warriors, which was a pretty cool show. It was pretty basic with the whole good versus evil team complement. Pretty much every other action show of the time, it just had, medieval fantasy techno warriors versus, Evil Dead 3's Army of Darkness, basically. And I'm being kind of facetious there, but the leader of the skeletons really did kind of look like the skeletonized Evil Ash from Army of Darkness. Just saying. All right. Now we have a very toy-based cartoon of the time with Sky Dancers. And I have to be fair to this one. I put Dragonflies up here in great. And Dragonflies were essentially the boy version of the Sky Dancers. And both of the cartoons were pretty much made with the same production values. So it would really be unfair of me to put Sky Dancers lower than great when I have Dragonflies here. So it wasn't quite as action-packed as the Dragonfly storyline, but I'll forgive it that for purposes of ranking. Although, I do wish in those cartoons that they'd gone ahead and made them like the toys, because that would have been so much more funny. Because, the toys, their wings basically rotated around their neck, and so they flew by a collar, essentially, instead of having actual wings like in the shows. But yeah, I would have loved to see them trying to put that into some kind of realistic setting. And yeah, very close to the same concept as He-Man, She-Ra 10. They were both based on those pull string toys that helicoptered away. I'm sure everybody's seen the meme of the little girl that got a Skydancer for Christmas and launched it and it flew straight into the fireplace. All right, next up, we have an interesting show that I'll admit I didn't see in the 90s, but I have watched since, the Sky Surf Strike Force. It's really pretty fun. It's about these 5 people who are kind of secret crime fighters that have these little tiny miniature cars that when they activate their transmograph, whatever they're called, it turns them into these armored people and turns their cars into basically hoverboards. And yeah, it was, like Dorlaxon said, about as 90s as 90s gets. Although they did have kind of the dumbest code names of any characters of the era. I think the code names were we had Soar Loser, SOAR Loser, because he flies, and Crazy Stunts was one of them. The female member of the team was named Sliced Ice because she carried a sword and could freeze things. And I forget what the last guy was. He was the big heavy weapons guy, something Destroyer. But yeah, they were terrible names. So, oh well. Still a fun show. And then we've got a game based on what may very well be, a cartoon based on what may very well be the best video game of the decade. Certainly the best of all the Super Mario Brothers games, with Super Mario Brothers 3. So, if for no other reason than its association with the game, I have to put that one up in awesome. The only thing that could have possibly made it better would be if it had had Captain Lou Albano in it. But we didn't have any more Captain Lou by this time. And then we've got Mario's direct rival of the era with Sonic. Specifically, Sonic Sat AM, which was the best of the Sonic cartoons. And deserves its spot right up here with his direct rival. The Yoshi, so the Super Mario World one, yeah, where they were cavemen for some reason. I just never understood that one, but yeah, Captain N was good when it had Mario and Zelda in it. And then when they spun off, I think without those other 2 shows, Captain N just ran a little bit long. So, but no, just my thoughts. All right, so where to put this next one? Definitely one of the longest lasting shows of the decade. Probably one of the most influential shows of the decade. Yeah, it's hard to not be able to not justify putting it up here in best of the best, but as a point of personal preference, I don't think I quite like it as a best of the best show because I don't know, it was never my style of humor until later in life. So I didn't really consider myself much of a fan back at its early years. Um, but I can appreciate it now and look back on it fondly. So for me, sorry, Dorlaxon, I'm just going to put that one here in awesome because it's not one of my best of the best. All right. Here's another one I never watched, Space Cats. Couldn't even tell you where or when it was on, but yeah, not something I saw any of. But I did see a lot of this one, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And I know that a lot of people from the server are Hanna-Barbera purists, but I thought Space Ghost Coast to Coast was pretty funny. So I'll put that one up in great. I'm pretty sure that 10 has a different opinion on Coast to Coast. And yeah, I was going to say you as well, Slinky, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty fun. And now we have another space show with Space Goofs, which is another one I've never seen. Zorak wasn't the only saving grace. Moltar was really good in it too. So, anybody seen Space Goofs? Not one I ever caught. Or Space Strikers. I don't really know what either of those were all about. But all right. So this one, I think we can probably all agree that this one was in fact one of the best for the decade. Because it was easily the most closely done adaptation of a comic. Well, that and the Max, but just yeah, Spawn was a great decision to make sure it was on HBO and got to keep the R rating that the Spawn comics used to such good effect. Keith David's perfect as anything. Love Keith David. And it was about 15,000 times better than the Spawn movie. Sure, everybody can agree on that one. All right, next up isn't really a cartoon on its own. This was a recurring show as part of Liquid Television, The Specialists. And it was the spy series about the three single colored spies, or the blue one, the pink one, the green one. It was just kind of goofy, but still kind of funny. And one of the pieces of Liquid Television that's always stood out most to me. So I wanted to put that one on the list separately. Uh-oh. 10, do you have to go feed the animals again? Because now we've got the 90s reboot of Speed Racer. tried. They really tried, but that was not a good version of Speed Racer at all. So it's going to have to sit right here in meh. All right. Next up, well, we can pretend that one never happened at all. 10. Fortunately, it didn't get any traction when it came out, so I'm good pretending that it wasn't even a thing. Next up, we have Spicy City, which I'm sure everybody knows that I'm kind of a Ralph Bakshi shill. I have a soft spot for Bakshi animation, and that was a fun adult-oriented HBO release. Only 6 episodes, but it was a really cool kind of a sci-fi thing. Reminded me a lot of, you ever see the movie Strange Days? Kind of reminded me of that. So I thought it was pretty awesome. But that's just my opinion. Oh, hey, Dynabolt's here. So just because you don't have enough time to hang around for it, Dynabolt, I'm going to skip ahead and we're going to talk about Beast Wars, which I'm relatively certain everybody would be okay with me putting in awesome, but some of us might even be okay with me putting it in best of the best, which is where I'm going to put it, because it was on every morning between PT and start of the business day when I was in the Army, and we watched it all the time in the barracks. So I've got some great memories of Beast Wars. And even without those, hopefully you all saw my War Planets Shadow Raiders deep dive and know that it's kind of held in that same regard. Really well done, really mature storyline. And the fact that they somehow managed to tie it all together and associate it directly with G1 at the very end of the series was just pretty awesome. So yeah, Beast Wars goes right there in best of the best. Yeah, I love Cheetor. Cheetor was definitely cool. I did botch it when I was talking about Beast Wars in the Shadow Raiders video, and I mixed up Optimal Optimus and Optimus Primal and Optimus Prime, and just completely botched the name. So so there you go. Wanted to make sure we covered that one while you're here, Dynabolt. And now we get to probably the second best of any Marvel series from the 1990s, with Spider-Man, the animated series. And this one was, and this is again just my opinion, I'm going to put it in awesome instead of best of the best, because I never liked the animation in it. It wasn't a well animated series. So I liked the storylines. I liked that they were comic faithful. I liked the character designs, but that animation just knocks it a little bit down from best to best in my brain. So there it goes, right there on awesome. Next up, we have another Spider-Man with Spider-Man Unlimited. Anybody remember this thing? Where he went to the alternate dimension that was populated by all the Venom symbiotes. symbiotes, I want to call it. It was fun enough. I mean, yeah, Counter Earth. I thought it was okay. It was nothing like most of the others of the period, but I wouldn't feel bad watching it. I thought it was decent enough show. So I'm more than happy to put it here in good. But next, we have the Spooktacular Adventures of Casper, which, you guys know me and the classic cartoons. I'm fine with them, but I don't know, never been much of a Casper fan either, so I'll willing to put it in good, but didn't really do anything for me specifically. Next up, one of the weakest toy adaptations since Rubik the Amazing Cube, we have Stone Protectors. Y'all remember this? They were a really terrible rock band that got hit by a meteor or something, that all the stones turned them into trolls and gave each of them a theme. And yeah, no, this one was, I'm willing to put it in good. All right, Dynabolt, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. But it was, reaching for that TMNT crowd and fell so very short. But I'll put it in good, charitably. But it was no better than that in any way imaginable. Now we have another video game adaptation. I don't remember where we put Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm. This one pretty much fell into, oh, there it is, in good. This one pretty much fell into that same area. It was fun enough, I guess, but, well, if we're talking about Wendy from the live action movie, then yeah, Christina Ricci is awesome. So I'm a Wendy fan also. But yeah, this is Street Fighter, Dorlaxon. So that's the 96 Street Fighter. And I gotta say, has anybody ever compared Street Fighter and Rambo and the Force of Freedom side by side? Because they look very similar in design and style and execution. So it's hard to put it anywhere else but good, because it wasn't a bad cartoon, but I mean, hold it up against any of the Street Fighter anime from that era, and it's just kind of pathetic. So we'll put it in good. I think that's probably a nice enough spot for it. And if it did have JCVD, I don't know where we'd put it for that. If it had Raul Julia, though, it'd probably bump it up a little bit. So speaking of going for that TMNT crowd, next up we've got Street Sharks. And this one actually did hit pretty close to the TMNT mark. I mean, definitely not as close as Biker Mice, but I thought Street Sharks was a whole lot of fun. Good show. Weird premise, and way ahead of the curve as far as shark popularity went. But All right. This next one, I don't even know who all here may have seen it. Student Bodies was actually an animated, well, it was actually a live action show, kind of like Saved by the Bell, but it had animated sections where one of the main characters would daydream and doodle and draw cartoons in his sketchbook. So that's why I put it on the list, but I actually never saw it, which is weird because it's from up around the area I grew up in. I think it was mostly broadcast around the Canadian border, because I think it might have been a Canadian production, but yeah, not something I really ever saw. All right. Next up, we have Stunt Dogs. Anybody remember this one about the stunt people who had a team of, I won't say crime fighters. They mostly fought evil stunt people. Yeah, I don't know. It was goofy and had weird characters doing things that were stunt related. So it was good enough, but it was nothing special. So put it right there in good. It was something special because I love Super Dave Osborne, and the Super Dave cartoon was a ton of fun. Had the live action segments before and after. I don't know who all agrees with me, but Super Dave was great, and so that's where I'm putting the animated series. But loved Super Dave back in the day. And here you go, 10. Here's the Super Mario World we were chatting about. Easily the worst of the Mario Brothers cartoons, and kind of hated the caveman setting. To me, that one was meh. If it wasn't meh to you, okay, but no, meh. The next one I separated out of I Am Weasel because I felt like it deserved to get mention of its own, but it's the modern version of Secret Squirrel, which was pretty much the only reason to watch I Am Weasel in most instances, I think. Or wait, no, not I Am Weasel. Two Stupid Dogs, right? Yeah, Two Stupid Dogs. Yeah, it was the only reason to watch Two Stupid Dogs. But this one I thought was a good enough cartoon, even if I thought Two Stupid Dogs was pretty much trash. We'll get to that one. All right. I'll wait another minute for 10 to close his eyes and put his fingers in his ears before we move on to talking about Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Because I know 10 loves US adaptations of tokusatsu shows, especially when they star Joey Lawrence's younger brother. So, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad was okay. I mean, it wasn't Power Rangers good, but it was still fun enough. So, I don't think I can put it as a meh, because I did watch it sometimes. It was enjoyable. I think I have to put it here in good. But sorry, 10, I know you would put it in trash, but and next up, Superman Batman Adventures. These were repackaged and rebroadcasted versions of the 70s cartoon, right? If I remember correctly. Which those 70s versions of Superman and Batman were pretty fun. So Yeah, I don't know. This one was, oh, they were the originals. Okay, well, even better. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So, all right, well, pretty sure this one goes up here, right? Anybody want to argue that? I know it's not as good as Batman, but didn't miss the mark by much. I know Slinky won't argue it. Superman's a Slinky fave, so. But yeah, it's probably the only, those animated series from the time are probably the only representation of Superman I've ever seen in pop culture outside of comic books that actually represent just how powerful he is. There was never a question of how freaking tough Superman was in that cartoon, which made it the greatest Superman thing ever made, probably. But just my opinion. And now we go from Marvel to DC with the very, very short-lived Swamp Thing animated series, which should have lived longer, but it was fun while it lasted for those 5 episodes. And it kind of did a good job of kidifying the Wes Craven version of Swamp Thing. So, unfortunately, it was well before the point of DC realizing that Swamp Thing was essentially a god, and now he's pretty much omnipotent, omnipresent in DC universe. So, and yeah, Clancy Brown's pretty much awesome as anything. So, not a stretch that he'd be awesome as Lex Luthor. But come on, Tom Daly as Superman. I loved Wings, so I never would have put the two together, but he made a great Superman. All right. Next up, we have one that I have talked about a few times on the channel. And I think everybody knows that I really enjoy this one. So SWAT Cats kind of has to go up in awesome, because it was a hell of a lot of fun. Had some cool tech designs. Razor and T-Bone were kind of great characters. Uh-oh. What, 10? You think SWAT Cats is the best of the best, or do you think it's trash? I don't know. I don't know which way you're leaning on this one. Oh, okay. Really, you think SWAT Cats can compete with everything up in the best of the best category? Because I think it deserves to be here with Mummies Alive, Mighty Ducks, Cadillacs, and Dinosaurs. I mean, I could potentially see best of the best. But, well, yeah, Farrell knocked it down at least one peg. But then Kaylee knocks it back up a peg. Fine, I can buy into that. SWAT Cats, best of the best. So, yeah, I can make that concession. Best of the best. But I have to be careful, because I could do the same with Big Guy and Rusty, with King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, with Pirates of Darkwater. There's a lot of those that I could potentially justify best of the best for. So got to be careful there. Yeah, Biker Mice too. But we'll go ahead and put SWAT Cats up there, especially considering it was such a perfect swan song for what was essentially the original Hanna-Barbera. All right. So I know I keep saying that classic cartoons I'm okay with, but I gotta be honest, I really liked Sylvester and Tweety enough that I thought it was almost on par with some of the Animaniacs type uh, releases from the period. Just something fun about Granny going around with uh, Sylvester, Tweety, and Butch. And wait, Butch was Tom and Jerry, wasn't he? I don't know what the dog was from Sylvester and Tweety, but yeah, um, really liked that show either way. It was a lot of fun. Thought it was pretty awesome. And now I have yet another of the nice adaptations of R-rated movies that came out during the decade with Tales from the Crypt Keeper. And I think this one was a little better than good. Uh, so I'm leaning toward great. I mean, it obviously paled in comparison to the live action uh, Tales from the Crypt show, but it was still fun. So, yeah, I think it's got to go up here in great, better than pretty much anything that I put in the good category. So, I think it's easily justifiable. Next up, we have Tailspin, the weirdest adaptation of the Jungle Book that I've ever seen. And I love this show. And it goes at least in awesome, but for me, I think it was the best of the Disney afternoon shows. It's the one I enjoyed the most. So, purely by that status, I would put Tailspin up in best the best because there was a lot of fun to be had in that show. Um, yeah, even the characters that weren't original to the story of the Jungle Book, like Wildcat, loved Don Carnage, even like Kit. So, but yeah, I had to put that one up there, I think. All right, so here we go. This one was fully American tokusatsu, not something we stole from the Japanese and put some American kids in. Tattooed teenage robot fighters from Beverly Hills. And yeah, that one was not great. So um, I'm gonna have to put that one in meh. I guess we needed to lean on Japanese design for those because that show just didn't cut it. Next up, look, it's another Looney Tunes character who got a solo spinoff that was actually really great with Tasmania. I thought that show was hilarious, and I think it needs to be up here and awesome with Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. And I still get the theme song to it stuck in my head every once in a while. So, yeah, it goes there. I liked the Taz family and that he was basically the ADHD child. But Taz, two in a row that feel free to throw out your input into these. But first up, we have Technoman, the U.S. adaptation of Tekkaman Knight, right? I think that was the original Japanese series it's based on. But again, I don't know. I think we kind of have to compare these to the anime at this point in our lives, right? So it was a fun show because I don't think you can completely ruin an anime just by adapting it to the US. If nothing else, you still have the animation quality and the technical aspects of it. So yeah, I think Technoman belongs in good, but can't quite put it much higher than that, especially holding it up against the actual other Tekkaman series. And speaking of not being able to hold up against the original Japanese versions, and I'm sure Ten's got thoughts on this one too, but it's Tenchi Muyo. Aw, you didn't think Warrior of the Wind was just as good as Nausicaa? What are your thoughts on Tenchi, Ten? Go ahead, let it rip. I'm kidding. We would be here probably all night if we let you go on about Tenchi Muyo and its US adaptation. All right. Has anybody seen this one? Tenko and the Guardians of the Magic. This one was based on a real magician, Princess Tenko. And in the cartoon, she was basically, I don't know, the Sorcerer Supreme. She was like the keeper of magic on Earth, and she had a team of other people that they would do the whole transform into their superpowered forms and fight evildoers. And between the animated segments, they would have the actual real life Tenko doing magic tricks. So interesting show, and it was fun. It was like the some of the other female leaning versions of like the 80s and 90s action teams. So it was pretty great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's pretty hard to find in any good quality, but it's worth a watch. So next up, The Terrible Thunder Lizards. This one was kind of that slapsticky dinosaur show of the time, which was okay. It was pretty fun, but not much to it besides just the jinx that was caused between the thunder lizards and the humans that they were after. But still fun enough, worth a watch. Speaking of worth a watch, Tex Avery show wasn't. I don't know what they were thinking, but there was no aspect of that show that, in my opinion, caught any of the Tex Avery magic. I'm willing to listen if anybody's got a counter argument, but to me, that show is just kind of meh. I know that Ten and Slinky are probably bigger Tex Avery fans than I am, so if I don't hear any dissension from either of them, then I'll accept. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it, Slinky. It's the Tex Avery show where we do everything Tex Avery would not have. All right, so next up we have The Power Team, which was an animated segment of, I forget what the video game review show was, but this was an animated section that had a bunch of generic video game characters on a team with like Bigfoot and the guy from Narc and I don't even remember who the other characters were. It was good enough. but it was not one of the better video game adaptations of the time. So, yeah, I think the show that it was on, the review show, was actually called Video Power. But, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, Dorlaxon. The Tick was probably one of my favorite shows of the decade. I just loved that cartoon, and to this day, still watch it occasionally. Just such a good spoof of comic books in general and superheroes in general. But if you haven't seen The Tick, you're missing out. It's you know who probably has seen The Tick is the writer of One Punch Man. A lot of his characters remind me of the other superheroes from The Tick for some reason. But unfortunately, neither of the live action Tick shows were anywhere near as good as the animated series. But hey, at least they tried, right? All right, so now we get to another Disney adaptation with Timon and Pumbaa, which we all know how good The Lion King was. Timon and Pumbaa leaned a little too heavily on the fart humor. So it was good enough. Had a really nice looking animation. And yeah, 10, you're right. Patrick Warburton does bring the Tick series up a notch, but the fact that they had Batmanuel instead of Deflator Mouse, like, why change aspects like that from the show? But it is what it is. So, but Timon and Pumbaa, for animation quality and everything, gets. Next, continuing the Looney Tunes love for the decade, we have Tiny Toons, and it's not quite best of the best to me, because some of the characters and representations in it were, I didn't really care, but definitely gets up here in awesome. So, all right, now we have the best tokusatsu, if you want to call it a tokusatsu, of the 90s, with Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. And for what it was, I don't know, awesome or great? Probably just great, right? I mean, it looked good. It was well performed, but the stories were a little lacking. But it did introduce us to Venus de Milo, so that's cool, even if she got unceremoniously chopped out of Ninja Turtles canon when Scott Eastman started writing it again because he hated her. So, but I thought it was good enough, plenty of fun. Yeah, just going to leave it right there. All right, so next up, we have the Tom and Jerry Kids, which was a late entry into the kidification trend of the 80s, and I don't know, pretty well done. Yeah, I think no, I think it was good. I don't think I can put it up in great. There's too many other things in good that are it's equal. So just going to have to leave it there, I think. Well, this is true, but next up, Toon Heads. This was a variety type cartoon sketch show of the time. I don't think I saw much of it. I can't even remember if there were any sketches that really came out of it and gained really any kind of success. So I'm gonna have to put that one down there, as well as Toonsylvania. I don't really remember watching Toonsylvania ever. Oh yeah, I do remember those 10, the how-to segments and stuff. Those are pretty cool. All right. Next up, another cartoon based on one of my favorite R-rated films of the decade, but one that absolutely no children should have been introduced to, with Toxic Crusaders. I thought Toxic Crusaders was pretty great, especially considering Toxie had a sentient mop. But yeah, I love the Toxic Crusader movies, or I'm sorry, Toxic Avenger movies, and that cartoon was a lot of fun, but it's so very much a franchise that you should not introduce anyone younger than like 16 to. But even then, yeah, loved it. It just got a new release on DVD for the complete series that I picked up not too long ago. So 22. That might be it might skew a little older than I would recommend, but I can almost see where you're coming from there. But yeah, same. I like a lot of Troma stuff, even though it's admittedly trash, even by the Troma creators themselves admitting that most of what they make is trash. But it's fun trash. Next up, we have the Transformers existential crisis that was Beast Wars. I'm sorry, Beast Machines, which paled in comparison to Beast Wars. I could not really ever get into Beast Machines that heavily, but especially not with Rat Trap on wheels and yeah, I could honestly be convinced to put it in good because it didn't even feel like a Transformers show to me. Like I said, Transformers, the existential crisis. But all right, next up, Twinkle the Dream Being. Never saw it. And the 90s updated version of Felix the Cat, which, oh, good enough, nothing special. Yeah, Rhinox was probably my favorite character from Beast Wars, so making him a bad guy, yeah, no thanks. All right, next up we have another comic adaptation, this time from Malibu's Ultraverse with Ultra Force. I was all in when the Ultraverse first came out and collected most of the titles for a good long while during high school. So I liked a lot of the Ultra Force characters. The cartoon even though the animation wasn't as good as I would have liked, and the characterization of some of the members of Ultra Force not as good as I'd like either. Specifically, Dorlax and the way they portrayed Prime. I just did not enjoy the Prime's attitude in the show. He was too 90s punk extreme kid. So, but I did like the character. He was a fun character. But I still thought the Ultra Force cartoon overall was pretty great. So, yeah, I'll put it there. Next up, and where's Mel when we need somebody to really tear apart a show? Because next up we have Vampires, which I never even heard of before looking some stuff up about it for her. Anybody else out there heard of Vampires? About the I don't even remember what it's about. So, and I looked it up. I watched a couple episodes, and no idea what it's about. So, all I know is it was terrible. Next up, we have VeggieTales. And regardless of anything else about it, as far as the message or anything, I don't know if anyone out there can say anything too bad about VeggieTales. The show was honestly pretty hilarious. They had some really catchy earworm songs in it. As long as the messaging portion wasn't being too heavily pushed, which they honestly did a pretty good job balancing it, I thought that it was a pretty awesome show. My kids really loved it, so I watched quite a bit of it. And yeah, I think it deserves to be up there in the awesome area. But just my 2 cents. Uh-oh. Here's another one that's going to be point of contention with Voltron, the Third Dimension. Everybody remember the CGI Voltron? Or have you tried to block it out? It was good enough. It at least got Voltron on TV screens during a era where it wasn't. But yeah, I know, 10. But I don't know. Can't put anything with the Voltron name below good, because at the end of the day, you've still got the lions, you've still got the giant robot, and that's generally good enough for me. I mean, theoretically, it was Voltron, right? They called it Voltron. Next up, a pretty much entirely lost cartoon. I can't find any of this anywhere, and it's an absolute shame because this was the spiritual successor to Mask. Vortec, the undercover something squad. And it was guys in powered masks riding around in transformers. And from what I've seen, it does a good job of carrying the torch for Mask. But like I said, it's almost completely gone. There's none of it floating around out there, which is too bad. What I've seen, I liked, but can't refresh my memory on it at all with nothing being out there to refresh it with. All right. Next, another tokusatsu for Tend to Ignore with VR Troopers. So, VR Troopers was potentially maybe the third best of these types of shows from the era, in my opinion. Better than Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, better than Tattooed Teenage Robot Fighters, but not as good as Power Rangers, and definitely not as good as Mystic Knights. So I think maybe great is a good spot for it, but a lower grade than Mystic Knights and Power Rangers. So I don't know, maybe even knock it down to good, because those two occupy the great spots. So let's not make it a point of contention. VR Troopers can go down here. All right, so next up we have the Whatever World of Tex Avery, which was actual vintage Tex Avery, and a little bit of newer stuff in true Tex Avery style, which made it pretty great. Definitely better than that other Tex Avery show. I liked the newer stuff. So, yeah, especially when compared to its direct associated show of the time, this Tex Avery probably has to be up here in the great category. Well, I'm allowed to like some classic stuff better than others. And I don't know, I think I liked that it had the newer versions of them because, more modern sensibilities. I don't know. It is what it is, man. Wake, Rattle, and Roll. I don't think I ever saw it. It did have that new version of, didn't it have the new version of Wacky Races in it? I think there was one, but I don't remember. Never saw it. So I also never saw Walter Melon. So neither one of those can go anywhere higher on the list than that. But now we have War Planet's Shadow Raiders. And as I kind of alluded to in the deep dive, that show was pretty awesome. I thought it had pretty decently done animation for the time. Nice continuous storyline all throughout. But just like, hey, conveniently enough, Pirates of Dark Waters, it was dead before its time. So it's a good one. You should check it out if you get the chance to, Derlaxin. If you like Reboot or Beast Wars, you're absolutely going to like this one. Have you managed to watch any of it yet, Slinky? I know you've been busy with other things. All right. Another one I never saw, Wanehead. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it when you get around to it, Slinky. It's a really well done show. So, and then What a Cartoon. It's a hit or miss. It could be good or better, depending on what the cartoon in it was, but it could also be absolutely terrible. So next is What a Mess. I don't have anything to say about it. I can't pull any details about this show at all. So I got nothing. This is just going to have to go here, I think. But this next one was a surprisingly good show. I thought that this cartoon was freaking great. So if you haven't seen the 90s version of Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, you are missing out because it was excellent. But yeah, I'm glad we all agree. Cool. Yeah, no rockapella singing the theme on that one. But Where's Waldo? I caught a couple episodes of it. It was fine. Nothing special. The YY Family, never saw that one. Also never saw Widget the World Watcher. So don't have much to say about any of those. I do, however, have something to say about Wildcats because, like I said, I was a huge Image fan in the early 90s, and Wildcats was probably my favorite series out of all of them. So I'll admit, the cartoon kind of sucked. Hey, Trek, as far as wasn't the best animation, and yeah, I messed up the setup, so I didn't have the camera tonight. Sorry. But yeah, Wildcats didn't have the best animation, didn't have nearly the complex storylines that the comics did, but it had Maul, it had Warblade, it had Voodoo. Most importantly, it had Grifter, and that was enough for me because I love the Wildcats, and yeah, not much else to say on that. Just putting it there just because it was there. Although, they did change quite a few things, I'll admit. Voodoo, I don't think, was a stripper in the cartoon, but Danger Girl and Gen 13 were both good choices as well, but they didn't have an animated series. Gen 13 did have an animated movie, but it only had 3 of the Gen 13 characters in it, so. Wild Thornberries. I never liked the animation style, but I liked the show as a show. It was a really great show, so. But yeah, the Gen 13 movie, it didn't have Burnout or Rainmaker. Rainmaker was in it for like 2 seconds, but it was mostly the Fairchild show with Freefall and Grunge as supporting characters. Yeah, agreed, Dorlaxon. Tim Curry makes everything better. I think everyone knows my stance on that. But even just in general, Wild Thornberries was quite a bit of fun, I thought. So put it up there in great. Next up, the Wing Commander cartoon. So, was the Wing Commander cartoon based on the Wing Commander games, or was it based on the movie that was based on the games? I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be based on the games, but with the movie coming out so close in time to the cartoon, it's hard to separate the two in my head. But you all know me and flying things, so anything that's got space dog fighting, I think I have to put up here in great. Yeah, the movie was awful in a lot of different ways, but it was awful in all the best ways. I love that movie. I went and saw it in the theater. And it had Matthew Lillard. I mean, it was Fred and Shaggy in space. I don't know. I'll watch anything with Matthew Lillard in it. I love that guy. Next up, we have a Macaulay Culkin showpiece series with Wish Kid. Remember this one? Macaulay Culkin had the magic baseball glove. Meh. I have not seen Five Nights. I have it, just, haven't watched it yet. I also have Willy's Wonderland and haven't watched that one yet either, but that one's got Nick Cage, so I imagine it's even better than Five Nights. Wizard of Oz. Never saw the cartoon. Hopefully it was as traumatizing as Return to Oz, but probably not. All right, what's this next one? I don't even know. Beatrix Pot. Oh, this must be Velveteen Rabbit something or other. Skewed a little young for me, so I'm sure it's not something I had in, even if I were in the right age group. Oh, hey, look. Another cartoon that I don't have to talk about, and nobody's going to argue about its placement because I'm pretty sure everybody's on the same page for this one. If you're not, feel free to let me know, and I'll explain why you're wrong. No, I'm kidding. You're welcome to have your opinion. But I'm pretty sure most of us are of the opinion that X-Men deserves to be in the best of the best for the decade. And if you haven't seen Deadpool Wolverine yet, then you're missing out because Channing Tatum Channing, I can never remember what order that guy's name is in, but he made such an awesome Gambit in the movie. It's a shame we never got him as, an actual Gambit like we were supposed to back in the day. So it's worth it just to see him as Gambit because it's so really well done in the movie. Yeah, he was definitely better than Taylor Kitsch in Wolverine Origins, mainly because he wore 100% comic accurate X-Men the Animated Series accurate costume. His eyes actually flashed purple when he used his powers. He was a martial artist. So, yeah, it was great. Next up, we have Cyber 9 New Dawn. Yeah, I'm sure it was probably supposed to be Cyber 9, but who's going to pronounce it Cyber? I mean, I will because I know that's what it's called, but it's Cyber. Unless you use, I guess, Chinese pronunciation, then it would be Jaiber, right? But yeah, this one was a pretty fun cartoon. Having trouble remembering much about it right now, but I know it was cool. The toy line was pretty interesting looking. So basically the kind of thing that any technophile would have been very pleased with. So I'll put that one up there in great. Hey, 10, Slinky, I need opinions. Yo Yogi, the kidified version of Yogi Bear, where they were all mall rats. Anybody got any thoughts on that one? Yeah, I didn't think the mall was a great setting. It wasn't so good, but the Young Robin Hood Adventures, that one was pretty good. It wasn't as good as Prince Valiant, but still fun enough. So I'll put that one there in the good category. Never saw Zazu U, so can't say much about that one. And what we've got left are 2 duplicates and one that was actually from the 80s. So that finishes off the decade. And Muppet Babies. I hope you didn't leave Muppet Babies off of that list on purpose, 10. Slinky and I will both be very offended. But that's pretty much the decade in a nutshell. Or I guess in a tier ranking. There were a ton of shows from the 90s. And a good number of them were really well done. It's surprising. I wouldn't have thought, looking back without actually having a list in front of me, I wouldn't have really thought about how many awesome shows there were from that time period. Yeah, definitely a lot of the anthropomorphic shows out there, and a lot of dangling threads of storylines too. That's definitely one of the worst parts about the shows that we did get, were how many of them were unceremoniously canceled with no end. But I'll post a link for where this tier list is available if anybody wants to go out and play around with it and make your own. What's that? I think Wild West was up here, right? I know we talked about Moo Mesa. Oh, here it is, right here in great. So, but those are actually a couple of randomated thoughts videos that I've been considering, is one on R-rated movies that got made into cartoons. No, I saw Wild West Cowboys. That one I did see. But I've thought about doing videos on both the 4 to 5 member anthropomorphic superhero teams, and one on R-rated cartoons or R-rated movies that became kid cartoons, and potentially even some of the other R-rated properties that got turned into toys, even if we didn't get a cartoon out of them, like Aliens and Terminator, Predator. But we'll see. I don't know where I would fit them in. I've got so many other things that I'm working on and want to do, but we will have to see how it goes. But that's it for tonight, and that's it for the 90s. I think for the next Dr.Animaction Live, I don't really know what we're going to do, but Slinky had mentioned thinking that playing the War Planets game might be cool, so maybe we'll do some of that. That's another video that I was considering, the World of 80s cartoon video game tie-ins, but I don't know. We'll see what I think of, and maybe I'll post something about it. But until then, keep an eye out for the next entry in the Squad Showdown sometime this weekend, hopefully. And yeah, I'll post this link. Let me know what you think. Share your list with me. All that good stuff. But otherwise, stay tuned, and stay tuned, as in cartoons. Later.